About today as we go along. So today's today's call is being recorded as the notification you just saw indicated. We will be sharing this recording, the slides, and any of the tools and resources that we reference. We'll share that after the call. If you need assistance during the call, please chat and message tech support, and we'll help you out. After we hear from our presenters, we will have a little Q&A session. So if you have questions that come up as we're going through the material and the sharing, please pop that in the chat and we'll address them as soon as we get to that session. And if we don't get to all the questions or don't have an answer for you, we will certainly follow up after the call and get that information to you. Also, please keep yourself on mute when not speaking to allow others to best hear. And at the end of the session, we will share a brief survey and ask you to take just 2 minutes to complete it. We'll even try to end 2 minutes early so that you have time to do it during this scheduled hour that you've graciously given us. We do really take that feedback seriously and use it to construct and make changes and adjustments to all the offerings that we share. So please take some moments to do that. So again, if you haven't yet, please take a moment to put your information in the chat to introduce yourself, name, organization, and location. Again, welcome everyone. Next slide, please, Yui. So today's agenda, we're going to do just a little review here, and then I'll do some brief introductions for our folks that are presenting today. And we do have a special guest that I'll introduce. And then, like I said, we'll do the Q&A and at the end, and then we'll wrap up with sharing of resources and that survey link. So across the United States, local governments have developed and implemented innovative solutions to improve communities, such as smoke-free laws, paid sick leave, rent control, and minimum wage issues. However, in the last few years, more and more states are increasingly passing abusive preemption laws that limit or even eliminate what local governments can do in certain policy areas, in many policy areas, really. This type of preemption can perpetuate disparities in health and equity. Today, we're going to learn how to best talk about and message about harmful preemption when we see it. And we will also highlight some tools and resources that we've created that are available for you to use in this important work. These tools can really help you communicate more effectively about preemption. Many include language that you can use verbatim if you so choose, and you can certainly modify those and tailor the messages for your specific issues and different topics within the preemption space. And then we will hear from Moms Rising about their role in the fight against harmful preemption. Let me take a quick moment to tell you a little bit about our friend Karen who's joining us before we move on. Karen Showalter is a senior campaign director on the Workforce Justice team, where she leads efforts around paid family and medical leave, equal pay, early learning, and more in Pennsylvania. Her work includes building a vibrant and powerful community of Pennsylvania parents and caregivers who understand challenges facing our families and have the skills to act on them. Karen has over 20 years experience organizing communities, training advocates, leading campaigns, and building movements around social justice issues. Karen earned her bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan and her master's degree from Princeton. We'll hear a little more from Karen a little bit later on. But now I'm excited that my colleague Joshua Harris is joining us today. He's going to talk to us about the best messaging that we can use about harmful preemption. Joshua is the Senior Manager of Communications and Marketing for Voices for Healthy Kids, and he's joining us from Baltimore today. Welcome, Joshua.
Thank you so much, Christine. Hello, everyone. Good to see everyone in the chat. It looks like we have quite a few people who are representing local counties or jurisdictions. I even saw someone from the Flint, Michigan Mayor's Office. I think I saw a few people from Michigan. It's exciting to have you here with us. I just put this definition on the screen for us just to use as an example, as a refresher, a reminder. Christine just kind of went over the top level. And we're going to talk about messaging around preemption and what that looks like and how we message and then who we message to. Preemption can seem like a complicated or complex topic to discussion, so we're going to hash it out, and I want this to kind of be an open discussion, and so I'm going to pause at certain points throughout to take questions. See if anyone has any questions after we've gone through some examples of some things, or you can wait to the end to ask your questions. Well, we'll get started. Preemption, of course, occurs when a higher level of government, like the state legislature, restricts or withdraws the authority of a lower level of government, such as the city, council, or county government, to act on a particular issue. And as Christine said earlier, it's becoming increasingly more popular political tactic to reduce what we like to say democracy, the democratic process. And that, of course, perpetuates health disparities and exacerbates inequities, which is counterproductive to what we're working to change in our local democratic processes. And when we talk about prenatal to 3 issues, the reason, of course, that you should care is because equity, income instability, housing, and health are just a few of the reasons or policies that can be impacted when we see outside governments overturn local jurisdictions. And we know that healthy families lead to healthy babies, infants, and toddlers. And we want to make sure that in our communities and in our cities that we are working to pass the best policies or the best laws that will positively impact outcomes for our babies, infants, and toddlers. Next slide, please. This training we're going to go through our preemption messaging manual, just a high-level overview, and then you'll have the opportunity to go through and dig in a little bit more deeper when we share the links later on. The message research development that we've put together here is intended for advocates who need to shape a new narrative around preemption or learn how to talk about preemption and move audiences or local decision makers to be able to make their own decisions about the issues that directly impact them. We want to make sure that when we're messaging around preemption, we can build the case for local decision making. And that comes through 3 points. One, we want to be able to show local action and position local residents as problem solvers and show the grassroots effort and action that can create local policy change. 2, we want to be able to ensure that communities are being put ahead of corporations. This is a term that we've heard, I think, increasingly over the last 6 or 7 years, put people over profits. And we want to make sure that the local communities are being put. And we do that by making a vivid impact on local decisions of communities. We paint that vivid picture to contrast the importance of communities working on what's their best interests versus corporations who often have influence, who have lobbyists, but they have no connection to what's on the ground or what's actually happening on the ground and aren't going to be directly impacted. And then 3, we want to build upon local knowledge. We have to show how it's local knowledge and local policies that really shape legislation that gets passed. Position local knowledge as the basis for cooperation, not competition. And I have worked on the federal, state, and local level on policy issues and messaging. And one of the things that I'm always perplexed by, there's certain folks who love federal policy, but if we pay attention to what's happening locally, some of the issues that we work to correct or adjust federally will never bubble up and become issues if we pay attention to what's happening locally. And so really understanding that impact, it's about what's impacting people directly on the ground. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit more about local action and showing local action and what that looks like. And so here we have an example of messages and how a message should position local residents as problem solvers, as I mentioned earlier. And then you can see on the slide as well an example of an effective message and how it's persuasive and convincing people. The reason that that's important is to really understand that how that message can sway someone, and particularly in this case when we talk about policymakers in your decision. So that example says when local communities come up with a solution for their challenges and work together to put into practice, the state government should help them to improve it, not strike it down, right? It should be supportive of things that are impacting folks on the ground. And this is an example of a message that has been proven very persuasive that people tend to agree with. And messages should use positive and empowering language that emphasize cooperation, both within community and between state, or in some cases, federal government, right? We don't want it to become an us versus them situation. Slide 4, or the next slide, please. We want to also be able to show, when we're putting this messaging together, be able to show local residents and grassroots organizations working together, collaborating with local officials, because that's what it's about. It's about us being able to work collectively. And we want to avoid antagonistic images that show confrontation between residents and politicians. We want to have feelings, happy thoughts and happy feelings. And that's kind of one of the #1 lessons of how to win friends and influence people, if you will, which ultimately work and influence policy decisions that are being made. And so it's important that that imagery is reflective and not always contentious. Sometimes that will come a time where we have to protest or agitate. But when we're working for policy, initially we're having conversations and we're trying to get people to understand the importance of why these decisions impact on the local residents is most important. And so we want to make sure that that imagery reflects that. Then the story, we want to ensure and tell the origin story of policies by focusing on those who are most affected by the problem and those who have helped to come up and develop the solutions. It's important that this story, people don't buy into what you do, they buy into why you do it. There's a great video out there by Simon Sinek called Start With Why, and understanding that creating that story is that why. And so you want to really be able to shape that story and get people to understand that this is impacting people directly, and have those local stories of why it's important to create this policy change and why it shouldn't be overturned by folks who are not on the ground or anywhere near the communities that are being directly impacted. Next slide, please. This is really where we get into showing the importance and the difference in what happens when we put communities over corporations and showing the contrast. We want to be able to paint the vivid picture of the local impact. In contrast to what corporations' interests may be, they oftentimes can contradict what's most needed on the ground in communities. And so we want to ensure that we're using vivid language that helps to the audience to imagine, create that story, and better understand and visualize the direct connection of the people and the places that benefit from these local decisions, and the corporate interests stand in the way of making effective local decisions. So we want to describe government officials only as intermediaries between community and corporations, not as on either side of the fence, but as intermediaries who can help to create positive outcomes for communities, or they can work on the side of corporations, give them the opportunity. And over the next 2 slides, you'll see some examples of some imagery that's been created. So if you can go to the next slide for me. Here's a good example of some images that have been created. Good ideas start locally, from another campaign. Our community, our health, our voice, right? It's all about us and the local individuals that are most impacted. Local residents want what's best for their towns and cities, but state politicians are looking out for special interests. To fix our problems, we should be listening to communities, not to corporations. If you go to the next slide, there's a couple more examples here of some effective imagery that can be used to reference. Local impact starts with local ideas. Again, this is reiterating the fact that the people in communities have the ideas for the solutions that they need most and understand best what their needs are, right? We want to have community interest, not big soda interest or big corporate interest. So just reiterating the fact that community they're problem solvers, should be seen and painted as problem solvers, not the problem. We want to tell those stories, the importance of local decision making by pointing out how they'll benefit the community. And you can go to the next slide and show how corporate interests can impede upon that. So again, using that imagery all to paint that story. is extremely important. And I want to pause for a second to see if anyone has any examples, ask if anyone in the audience has any examples of where they've seen preemption to come into their city or into their county and overturn a decision that was made by local government who and it negatively impacted them. Is there anyone out there who has any examples or would like to speak to it? I can't see the chat. Pulling up the chat. No. All right. Oh, we do have a hand. Logan.
Hey,
share with us?
everyone. Hey, Joshua.
Hey.
The state of Pennsylvania preempts local municipality from changing the building code. So there's a statewide building code, which is true in most states. And we met with, and the state passed a new law that made it extremely difficult to pass even the new codes at the state level, let alone change anything at the municipal level. And we met with legislators on both sides of the aisle and explained the health benefits of better indoor air quality and the benefits to the economy if kids aren't always homesick and the parents have to take off work and things like that. So it really made a big difference, and it allowed them cover to change the law and change how the current law was being interpreted, and then ultimately change the law to pass better building codes.
Thank you for that. That's actually a great example. And I'd say if you can go to the next slide, a great example of like really being able to build on local knowledge and the importance of folks who are on the ground understanding what's impacting, how it's directly impacting residents, and in this case, students and children. And again, coming back to seeing the folks on the ground as problem solvers, best understand the impacts of laws on their communities. So that's really a great example. We want to share and use local individuals as a source of information, as well as an opportunity for those locally to cooperate with the state, rather than it's about collaboration and cooperation, not a competition to say that we have the best answers. Like, we should work together to get the best solutions for the residents in this specific jurisdiction or this specific community. I see something that popped up in the chat. I want to read it. Philadelphia can't pass gun laws that are stricter than what is written in the state gun laws, which is interesting because we know that there's a difference in access when you have a urban area with a higher population versus a rural area. And so there's differences in how that could be used. And so there should be differences in access for sure. So that's interesting. Philadelphia can't make them any stricter gun laws than the state. That's another good example. Where there's the impact on Philadelphia compared to the rest of rural Pennsylvania is drastically different. So that makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so now here, going back to our messages, things we should avoid. We should avoid zero-sum language that suggested either the state or locality must win. It's not, again, an us versus them. Instead, we want to use constructive language that emphasizes that all parties should be working together for the same goal and collective benefit, the best interest of the residents, right? Not our idea is better, your idea is terrible. How do we work together to do what's in the best interest of residents? And so framing is important there. An example of this, states should provide a foundation to build on, basic protections, so everyone is treated fairly. Local governments should have the ability to strengthen those protections based on what they know about their communities. That's a great example of effective messaging that doesn't paint us versus them, but you started good work, let us continue that good work, because we know and understand how it's going to impact our residents here on the ground. Next slide, please. Now, what we get when we combine all of these elements is what we call a unique value proposition. It is a succinct statement that describes the benefits of local decision-making and the harms of preemption. This statement that you see on the screen can be used to introduce the topic and answer common questions and help individuals to better understand. And if you can't see it, it says local residents and local leaders know how to solve local problems because they see them up close. When they work together to come up with the solution, the state should help them improve it, not strike it down because special interests told them to. We should be listening to communities, not corporations. And you see that kind of has all three of those elements in there, and each sentence you can see is highlighted in different color to really showcase where it comes into play, building upon local knowledge, showing that local individuals are taking action and committed to problem solving, as well as putting communities over corporations. So that's kind of a succinct statement that you can take and use to discuss and talk about preemption in your area and use that as an example to continue. Now, this has been a very high level introduction to kind of the messaging on preemption, and you can find more by utilizing our preemption guide, which we'll share the link for you. It includes background on the methodology used, about narrative development, how messages can turn people for or against preemption, and much more. So we encourage you to use this tool. And as we continue to go on, one of the other things that I want to talk about on the next slide is the importance of not just understanding how we message and how we talk about preemption, but knowing who we're talking to about preemption. Next slide, please. The final thing when it comes to messaging on preemption is critical for success of any campaign is identifying and understanding who our key decisions makers, who our key decision makers are. None of the messaging matter if we're not talking to the right people, right? In other trainings, we talk more in detail about our three key questions, and it's what do you want, why do you want it, and who has the power to give it to you? And so when we're talking about preemption, we have to understand who has the power to give it to us and identify those key decision makers. That's where we want to focus. And after we have a better understanding of how to talk about preemption, it's time for us to create more effective policy and laws, right? And so we have to talk to the right people. And so we want to identify key decision makers at each step of the way. And so if we're working to pass policy, your bill or legislation will likely go through several steps. So it isn't just about leadership of one committee or just one individual, but probably several that you'll have to meet with and communicate with. Oftentimes, if you have a bill sponsor, they can be helpful in letting you know which committees the bill might end up in. We want to identify pathways of influence. Once we figure out who those people are that we need to meet with and talk to, it's time to learn as much about them, that person or these persons, as you can from public sources and conversations with people who might know them personally and professionally. Your research will uncover valuable pathways of influence to certain lawmakers, and it will hopefully drastically improve your ability to appeal to them based on their own self-motivated interests or possible mutual relationships. And then you have an opportunity to shape your pitch to them in the best way that understands the values of the leadership. And that leadership may sometimes be conservative leaning, and to help you better understand and be prepared to engage with conservative leaders. If you're interested, we also offer, or if you're interested in receiving a training on what we call our archetypes that help you to understand the values of conservative leaning leadership. We are happy to do a presentation on that and go into more detail so that you can understand the value system and how you can communicate effectively and get things done when dealing with conservative leaders. You can send us an email at information@ncit.org for that. But again, this is targeted research that may uncover that a lawmaker has children at a particular school, that their spouse is a pediatrician, or that they donate to the local Boys and Girls Club in their district, or that they're on the board of another organization, right? And so this all helps you to better understand who they are, and the reason that they do is the reason that they make the decisions and think the way they do is often tied into just better understanding who they are. So we're looking for those connections so that when we go to meet with these lawmakers, we can best and most effectively have conversations with them around preemptive issues. And so hopefully this has been a bit of a high-level introduction for you on how we talk about preemption, and then of course, more importantly, and identifying who those decision makers are to get done what we want to get done, which is to pass effective laws. So I'd like to take an opportunity to, again, to kind of open the floor and take any questions or thoughts that anyone wants to share, any other examples that may have come to mind. I can think of an example in Flint for sure that has happened where we've seen the state come in and make decisions locally. But is there anyone else who wants to share or has questions? All right, seeing none. Oh, wait, the chat. Let me check the chat. Oh, those are the links. Thank you so much, Yui. Seeing no questions, then what we'll do is we'll continue and we'll pass it back to my colleague, Christine Compton. Christine?
Thank you so much, Joshua. That was great. I think there's a lot of stuff to dig into there. And preemption is such a wonky subject. We don't even use that word when we talk about it and deal with it. Those of us who work on it every day, but it was great to have you give us some examples of how to talk about this issue and help us frame it as we navigate this very challenging policy area. So now we're going to turn to our friend Karen Showalter. I'm excited to introduce you to her. She's from Moms Rising. Moms Rising needs no introduction in this space probably because they are a critical partner to many of us as we work to make sure all pregnant people, babies, and toddlers thrive. I'm excited to have Karen join us. She's been a longtime friend of Voices for Healthy Kids, and she's going to talk about why preemption matters to her organization and how they educate and mobilize their base about it. So Karen?
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. As you've said, Christine, we're such big fans of the work of the broader Voices family. And it's really nice to see folks on this call, older friends and newer ones. As Christine said, Moms Rising is a national network of parents mobilizing to ensure that every parent and family can thrive. And when I was invited to speak in this conversation, I started thinking about the ways that we connect with and mobilize parents around some of the thornier topics like preemption. And what I've brought to share is some of maybe our best tricks and tips and learnings in doing that. But to give you some context, just a quick second on us, we mobilize virtually and on the ground. We have a 1 million member plus national network, and we have focus states, one of which is Pennsylvania, and I'm our Pennsylvania director. We also have deep state campaigns in Washington State, in North Carolina, and New Hampshire, and coming on board Florida, in addition to Pennsylvania. And we work across a range of issues that affect parents and families. Workplace justice, early learning, gun safety, healthcare, taxes, immigration, broader justice reform, and so on. So as you can imagine, preemption shows up all of the time in our state work and is something that we're often thinking about or working to explain or to connect with our members around. To explain a little bit about how we work, because I think it's relevant for the conversation on preemption, I think something that makes us really successful is having a very broad set of tactics, so to speak, that we use with our parents. So you can engage with us through just clicking on a petition or texting a lawmaker. We make it really easy, like the top of our funnel, so to speak, is very accessible, very straightforward, very clear. Preemption is not an issue we usually put at that top of the funnel for reasons you can understand, right? One action that just did really well for us, for example, was a card acknowledging Senator Fetterman and thanking him for bravely speaking out about the importance of mental health. That's one we can explain in like 120 characters. People are really enthusiastic to share a message or a word of thanks. They get it, boom, it's out, does really well. We can like turn that over pretty easily. But of course, many of our issues are not that straightforward, right? Taxes, the budget, there's a whole bundle that are thornier, and preemption is certainly in that bucket. So additional tactics that we use involve working closely in campaigns and in coalitions. We really lean into cultivating what we call super volunteers or champions who have experience working on the issues and are ready to get deeper and do more nuanced work. We build relationships with offices of elected officials. We do a lot in the media, and we do a lot on social media. So as I think about preemption, I see certain ways that I know we can move it and message it to our members, and others that are a little more difficult. And I'm just going to share some of those experiences with you, building off of the great points that were just brought up before me on this call. So on the messaging front, some things that we find to be really successful are exactly as just been said, leaning into bad actors or into people who would take away the good things that we're deciding for our families and our communities. Corporations are really easy to paint in that way, right? So I love the suggestion around communities, not versus, but communities working. I really absorb that point around how we need to work together to tackle our challenges, but that communities should be leading the way, not corporations. I think that does really well with our members. For better or worse, and I want to acknowledge there are certainly corporations that do good things. Our members, like our popular membership, is easily mobilized around actors like that. They just have enough experience. They've seen enough that they're quickly motivated around something like corporations. Let's see. One of the ways that I have a few more here, and I have a good video I'm going to show you. So let me think. Okay, we'll show you the video and maybe 2 more bullet points. I've mentioned joining strategic campaigns that incorporate preemption. And a way that works really well for us is, again, with this idea of bringing parents in around maybe the broadest part of the funnel, an understandable action, a quick something they can take action on is how we bring in kind of the biggest numbers. Then we help parents connect to their story and their personal experience around issues. So in the prenatal to 3 space, challenges around finding care, challenges around having leave, paid leave, time to be with a new child or a sick family member. These are really motivating places to lean in with our members. Everybody has a story. When they connect to their story, they really become kind of mobilized and passionate around it. They also see that they're not alone because everybody has stories. So we bring storytellers together. They see that they're part of this bigger system that has challenges. And then we help connect them as a group to opportunities to take action. So where I'm going with that is that I think something that does really well for us is building longer-term champions and advocates, whether it's through a fellowship program or just staying in really good touch around our issues. We know that parents are as sophisticated as anybody out there. I don't mean to suggest that parents need 100 characters to be able to understand an issue or else it's beyond them. I don't mean that whatsoever. If anything, I think we're all busy people. Working people and families are busy. So trying to have the easiest ways for them to plug in, again, brings in the broadest numbers. But again, after that, we're working to cultivate people who are in it for the long haul, so to speak, who follow and watch issues, who might join one of our fellowship programs, who understand the long-term game around an issue that we're working on. So that when we do say, there's a message, there's a moment, there's a thing we need you to mobilize around, they're invested in it. It's not that it's a one and done thing with them. It's that we're building champions within these spaces. And a lot of that comes about through the organizing work, the leadership development, the on-the-ground events, and so on. So I think it's through this kind of broad set of tactics that we use that we can ease and make it easy for parents to take quick action, but also to take action around the more nuanced points like preemption. We have absolutely had parents speak out about preemption and they understand it. And it's because we've been able to layer in all of these different ways of working with them. Why don't we pause there? Let's show the video, and then I have a couple of additional things I'll layer in. But this is a video that we developed a couple of years ago that tries to do some of these messaging best practices. It tries to hit on the bad actor, shows how communities can come together, and shows how parents have power when they're working together. So I think it's a good example of how we bring an issue like this to our community. So I will pause and let us watch the video.
Communities across the country are building a world where all of our kids and families can thrive. And parents have helped lead the way. But what if your city, town, or county was barred from following the will of the people and making these good things happen? Right now, corporate interests are working to pass state-level preemption bills that stop local communities from passing policies promoting public health, safety, and economic well-being that are supported by people and local leaders. Preemption is part of a national, coordinated campaign by corporate lobbyists and trade associations to silence our voices in order to protect their profits and line their pockets. Who should be making decisions about our own communities? Us. But preemption takes our power away, weakens local democracy, overturns local elections, and ends local control over issues we care about, and stifles innovation to boot. There is hope. We have the power to fight back. Parents have won great things for our communities, and we will win at defending them too. But it's going to take all hands on deck to make it happen. Join us.
Thank you. I think that does a good job of, and by the way, that was developed with so much input from the folks at Voices and local solution support centers. So I would imagine many folks on this call, I know Lori, for example, has seen that in quite a lot of depth, and helped develop the messaging around that. But some of, again, the key messaging points are kind of painting some bad actors, painting a message of hope, painting or suggesting that when we come together, we can do great things. Though that's a storyline that works really well for us at Moms Rising. I think I just have another minute or two, but let me give you a couple of other tips around how we're able to connect with parents. And this last one, and the reason I showed the video before it is this last one is a little bit thornier perhaps, but I think our members are absolutely, again, mobilized by their personal experience, inspired by the act of coming together with other parents, but they're also really tuned into the broader system, so to speak, and some concepts that seem to really work when we talk about preemption. The idea of justice and equity, for example. A lot of the issues, in Pennsylvania right now, one of the spaces that we're supporting is a campaign to finally raise the minimum wage in Pennsylvania. We know the minimum wage has a disproportionate impact on women, on moms, and as with all of the issues we work on women and moms of color and people of color. And so when you lean into this idea that the system is not working, and in particular, the way that it's not working continues to perpetuate the systemic challenges that keep us from really thriving as families and as communities. Our members really respond to that. They're really motivated by this idea that we can transform our economic system and that there are spaces and actors within it that would keep us from doing that. And so when we tap into these themes around justice and equity and, a lot of the values that we know motivate across the aisle, like opportunity and the ability to do your best and to succeed and to support your family, we can really come at issues like preemption because they are currently baked into the system in a way that would keep families from doing that. And our members respond to that pretty strongly. So just to reiterate, I guess, it's a thorny issue for us, but it's a really important one. And I think the way that we're able to bring it to our members is by continuing to engage our members in the ways that work for us. Again, from quick action to, intensive fellowship program. And by doing that organizing and that relationship building, we can bring people into a place where they can understand and mobilize around it. And by staying in touch around campaigns and the progress that we're making and building long-term advocates around our issues, we cultivate people who will take action because they just hear and know it's important. And they trust somebody else in the space who's saying, this is something we got to move on. And next week, we're going to go back and deliver more stories. So they get the idea of how we work together to deploy all of the tactics we will, so to speak. And then again, tapping into some of the broader systemic challenges and how we can transform and redefine our system together is always a winner for our parents. I mentioned that the big place we're backing up right now in Pennsylvania is around the minimum wage. There, of course, is a lot more going on in Pennsylvania. I saw Logan on the call. Logan and Jacob from Heart Association lead a very vibrant working group around preemption. So I want to shout them out as well. And are one of the places where, for example, a group like ours can plug in and just kind of watch what's happening. If there's something opportune, use the tools we already do to mobilize our parents around it. So I will stop there, but I'm really happy to take questions. I have not been watching the chat. Let me come back. And the final thing I'll say is if you like that video, please feel free to reach out. We have most recently edited the ending of it, so it's pointing at the Pennsylvania minimum wage action page. And if you have such a need in your state or space, we're really eager to see that get used widely. So just let me know. Back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. And of course, thank you, Joshua. That's a lot of really great information for us to absorb and figure out how we can use moving forward. So let's dig in for a minute and see if there's any questions that we can try to answer. If you want to come off mute, feel free to ask your question to the group, or if you'd rather put it in the chat or raise your hand, you're welcome to do that as well. The link to the video, Yui, can you drop that in, or I can do it?
Sure thing, Karen. There's the webpage. Do
Yeah.
you want us to drop the one we just showed, or do you want to share the one Pennsylvania one?
Oh, the Pennsylvania one's not posted anywhere yet, actually. We just did that last week.
Oh, I'll post
yeah.
the one we just showed.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
And then also for you, Karen, question about your fellowship programs. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. Yeah. We have about 6 fellowship programs running right now, and they engage parent advocates through anywhere from, I'd say, 6 to 10 months. And they help them get deeper on their power as leaders and change makers. We do a lot of work thinking about your voice and how you show up in spaces, as well as how to craft your story and share it as an advocacy tool. We think a lot, or we build skills around how you engage others. So there's a lot of work to think about how you share your story with a decision maker or with a member of your community, or hold an event in your community. And then we usually culminate in some action that engages those who hold power over our issues. For example, in Pennsylvania, our most recent one had a lunch with Senator Casey. We also had a kind of a big parent advocacy event that brought in members, new Representative Summer Lee, as well as new State Rep Latasha Mays, with our parents to talk about kind of the agenda coming up in 2023 and how parents could engage. So it goes from kind of the personal to interpersonal to advocacy space. And they vary in the issue focus. The ones we're running in Pennsylvania are specific to early learning. In fact, if you're in Western Pennsylvania, let's connect, because that's where we're running it in Western Pennsylvania right now. We have others around early learning at the national level, around a suite of workplace justice issues in Washington State and New Hampshire. North Carolina, it's around hunger. And we also have a Spanish language fellowship program in North Carolina. So it's really a way to take parents who we see taking action over and over and help really support them in their growth as long-term leaders around our issues and beyond.
That sounds really intensive, but super informative. I think then there's one more question in the chat, and any of us can answer this. You might have a specific question or answer to this, Karen, but how can folks get connected with preemption coalitions in their state?
Was that a question for me?
I mean, it can be if you have an answer.
Sorry, I thought you said Karen. I was actually going to flip it over to Logan. If you want to learn more about Pennsylvania, Logan's your person on this call. Logan, maybe you know about other state spaces folks can connect with as well.
Yeah, I do. Do you want me to drop my email into the chat and you can reach out to me and I can get you connected? I'll do that.
And I will put mine in there as well. Thanks for that idea, Logan. We at Voices for Healthy Kids fund campaigns that are fighting harmful preemption. And so there are coalitions in those states that we are funding. So if you happen to be connected in one of those states, we can certainly direct you there as well.
I did have thanks, Joshua and Karen. That was awesome. And Karen, thanks for the shout out. Who are you planning on? The ad was awesome. It was really cool. And the information was just spot on. Who are you planning on getting that to, and how? And can we use it somehow?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That was meant to be an explainer for our members to mobilize them to take action. So something they could see on our social media. Oops, sorry. Our social media, or well, actually, no, the link I didn't share, the link I shared was not our action page. We actually have it on a petition page around preemption. So when you come to it, you get the why. So that's how that one was structured. But that can be, if folks can see a way to use that as an explainer. I know in Pennsylvania, we're doing a lot of education of legislators around preemption and why it's problematic and what they can do. I could see it being useful in that way as well. Yeah.
We have, and I guess this is another little shout out. We're doing a preemption meeting with new state House members and the Public Health Committee on April 24th, I believe. And Karen, you're 27th, sorry. And if you're in Pennsylvania and you want to if you want to attend, reach out to me. But maybe we could talk about showing that to the legislators there. So why don't you and I and Jake catch up at some point?
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else, folks? Any other questions we could answer for you this afternoon? Okay, if you do come across anything, we also just dropped in the chat, we have a technical assistance portal that we can answer questions and route you some additional resources and tools as you're working on this issue if it comes up for you. So that link is also in the chat. Lots of links in the chat. Be sure to copy and paste or save the chat if you want to come back and access it later.
Let's give them one more link with the survey link.
Oh yeah, we're going to do that next. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, we will move along to our closing. So you'll have plenty of time to do that survey that we're plugging. So thanks again to both of our speakers today, Joshua and Karen. It was great information and a lot to soak up and learn from for sure. So we thank you for your time and input. And thanks for all the questions and the other conversation that people contributed today. We really appreciate your input and thought partnership on this work. So we hope that you gain something useful to take forward. If you're interested in even another step, because we're never short on good things to share with folks as we have them. But so tomorrow we're going to talk about specifically messaging to conservative audiences about preemption, about the issue of preemption. And there's a registration link coming in the chat also for you to join that offering tomorrow if you are interested and available. It's tomorrow afternoon, Eastern time. And remember again, the technical assistance portal, that link is also in the chat if you come across something that you need help with as you're working through this, or if you come across something and you're not even sure if it's preemption, we can help you determine if it is, because sometimes they purposely, not by accident, make this stuff really tricky and sneaky to read. And so sometimes folks aren't even sure if it is implied preemption or blatant preemption without doing a little bit of an assessment. So reminder that that's available for you. And finally, there is the lovely survey. If you can take out your cell phone and take a photo of that with your, or open the camera and take a scan of that, and you will reach the QR code to take us to the survey link. If you could take a moment to do that, we'd really appreciate it. Again, we really take your feedback to heart and try to do our best to tailor things as we go forward and make things better for your learning and sharing. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and please reach out if we can offer anything additional. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.